Willie Sutton would have loved it here. To the end of his life, he was drawn to banks. So a banking capital of Europe, I think he would have found this a very intriguing place to walk around. He was very open about that. Even when he was released from prison the last time, he would walk by a bank and muse aloud about how difficult it would be to take it down. So, yeah, I think he'd have a good time there. No, I would say shockingly likable. Lovable is a stretch, maybe, but everyone who met this guy, the cops who arrested him, the judges who put him away, the guards who watched him in prison, reported that he was extremely difficult not to like. I mean, he was well-read, he was charming, he had this Irish blarney about him. Even at the end of his life, he was charming readers, and he was doing television commercials for banks. I mean, how can you not be charmed by a bank robber who does TV commercials at the end of his life for banks? There was something irrepressible about him, which is what made him that much more dangerous. I mean, he robbed and he cheated and he connived through guile. And even though he was non-violent, I think he was even more dangerous because he achieved a kind of a mythic stature. He became a folk hero. So shockingly likable, dangerously likable, lovable, that might be pushing it. Yes, I do. In fact, one of the reviewers called him a one-man Occupy movement. So I think he would very much identify with, I think he'd go out and bring sandwiches to those kids. I mean, he was anti-bank to his core. Some people have said, well, are you ascribing too much to him that he was anti-bank? But his first job was in a bank. He was fired by the bank. It doesn't take Dr. Freud to draw a connection there. The antagonism, I think, began there and lasted all his life. At the end of his life, he was working on a novel. What was the novel about? A banker who's a fraud, who lives a life that's a lie, and lives in fear that his real life story is going to be found out. So he was obsessed with banks and bankers, and he came of age at a moment when banks pushed the world to the edge of the abyss, and pushed it right over. I mean, the 1930s were a crisis. Largely, partly, or manufactured by banks, by speculation. So I think that, yes, he would have very much identified with those kids occupying Wall Street. My father was missing most of my young life, and when I finally met him, he told me that we were not German by blood. That this name, Moehringer, was taken by his father, whose real name was Antanasio, but he wanted to work in a factory that was run by Germans. And so when his neighbor, Franz Moehringer, died, he went to the widow Moehringer. He asked her permission to use her name. He went to the factory. He became Franz Moehringer between the hours of 9 and 5. He had a falling out with my father. They didn't speak for many years. When my father came back to the U.S. from his travelings, he decided to honor his father by taking the name Moehringer. This led to his final fight with my grandfather. My grandfather said, I didn't want to populate the world with Moehringers. I was just trying to feed my family. And they parted, never spoke again. And there I was in the bassinet with the name of my grandfather's dead neighbor. This was according to my father, who swore that we were not related by blood to any living or dead Moehringer. All of this, my mother says, is a fabulous, florid lie. She says that my grandfather, my father's father, was German, but that my father was a con artist, wanted to be Italian, wanted to be Sicilian, and invented this entire backstory as part of his plot to convince people that he was this tough Italian from Little Italy. So I never got to the bottom of it, and one day I will investigate it. I'm not sure which I hope for. I don't know if I want my father to be as delusional as Willie Sutton. I love thinking when I come to Germany that this is the land of my people, but I haven't spent a lot of time in Italy, so maybe I'll have that same thrill when I go there. One day I will put my journalistic skills, such as they are, to work and try and figure out who's telling the truth and who's lying. But for the moment, all I know is that's my father's version, and he was sticking with it.